How do you even determine pricing your home? In this video, we're gonna go ahead and go over how you're gonna figure out what your home is worth and which people to keep in mind when figuring out that value. In the description, we will have a link to this spreadsheet where you can follow along and go through it together. What we're gonna do is go through an example to actually look and see what the value this property, if I were to sell it today, what would it actually be worth? Awesome, so to begin, you start off on the Start Here tab, and on this tab here, it's just gonna go over some rules of thumb, the instructions, description of each tab, as well as the people that we are actually determining the value for. So I'm gonna go through that real quick. So you as a seller are gonna determine the value that you're willing to sell the property for, and typically it's not gonna be necessarily that sales price, it's gonna be what is the cash that you're gonna walk away with. And I'm gonna help you determine what that is here, as well as a buyer. A buyer is gonna look at everything else that is available to them and say, hey, this home is worth it to me, what I'm willing to pay for this versus what I'm willing to get relative to what is offered to me at that time. The last person is the appraiser. Now, the appraiser is gonna do a more in-depth dive into overall condition, overall value of this property. The buyer is typically looking at the overall sell price. So what's the minimum sell price versus the max sell price we could sell your property for, as well as the appraiser is looking at the overall price per square foot. So what's the minimum price per square foot and the maximum price per square foot? So let's go ahead and determine what value both a buyer and appraiser and you are willing to sell this home for. Now, to be able to do this, we're gonna first need to look up the actual property data to know and input some of the data that we have in this data to the second tab called data. Now, how we're gonna do that is there's a really cool website called Netro Online. And really, you wanna go to the property records, but if you don't know the where your property is or where the property records lie on the website, this website is a really good organization of it all. So for me, on the property we're looking at, we're gonna go to Arkansas and we're gonna hit Benton County. And then from there, you're typically gonna go to the assessor website. Now, you can click through all of these. It has such great public data for you to pull from. And you can go through each one of them and see what they have available. For us, we're gonna go to that Benton County Assessor data, search real estate records. We're gonna go ahead and type in the address here. And then once we type that address in and search for it, we're gonna click on that parcel number that opens up more data for us to go ahead and work through. And you're wanting to hit this improvements tab because the first thing you're really wanting to know is the overall square footage. Now, if you have an old appraisal and it has a different number, then I would use that appraisal number more than I would use this public record data. So for us, it's always appraisal, public records, and then what you have determined as the square footage by measuring it yourself. But those are the orders of priority of which one's more accurate, right? So once we've got this data, we're on the Start Here tab. There's a little good example that you can do here, which you can type in the square footage on this and it will give you a range. Because what we're gonna do is compare your home with homes that have already sold. And this is kind of more of a art form than it is a science, but on the science piece of it, we can use some kind of rule of thumbs to say what an appraiser or another buyer is comparing a like property to like property. Now, if you haven't watched our other video of really how to determine value and us talking about the endowment effect, and click on it in the description below. But what I want you to know is what we're going to pull data for is to help us not be so biased or subjective to what we feel like the value is, but really determine what all three parties will say the value of this property is, your property. So once we got that 1817 square feet, you could see that now we're looking at square footage within 20% range. And this will be important for us later on in the video. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the data tab and we're gonna go ahead and fill out some of the information. You can fill out the address at the top, and then after you fill out that address, you could put what month you think it will be closed in, what month do you need it closed by. So I'm gonna say we're gonna close it in September, so we put a 9. We're gonna put that square footage there, which is 1817. What do I really think it should sell for? I'm gonna put a random number and I'm gonna say 400,000. And then what you pay in taxes. You could typically find this on your escrow statement, or if you get a tax bill, you'll have it there, or your mortgage statement, it will say what your taxes is annually. Or you can go back to those county websites, click on the tax search records, and it will tell you what it is as well. Now, after that, we need to fill out what the payoff amount is. The payoff amount, if you owe nothing on it, is 0, right? The payoff amount, the best number to put in here is gonna be really what your mortgage balance is. Now, you, again, should be able to pull that from any kind of mortgage statement that you get, or going onto your online portal. Or what you can do is go to this amortization table and type in just some basic information to kind of roughly get what it would be. So for this one, we're gonna say the loan amount was $240,000 and we had a 2.875% interest rate for 30 years, and it started 4 years ago, 6/11/2020, okay? And then you can go to today's date. So today is June 2024, and this will tell you under the ending balance at the very last tab what that payoff statement would potentially be, or close to it. So we're gonna say 218,000. So we'll go back to that data tab, put that 218. And then if you wanna offer a home warranty, you could put that in here. It's anywhere from $350 to $500, but if that's something you don't wanna offer to a buyer, then we'll leave that out. Then you can go ahead and add in whatever repairs you think you may want to give to the buyer. Like, say you know the carpet needs to be replaced, you can go ahead and add that in here. We're gonna say nothing needs done on this property. Now we're gonna list it ourselves as a for sale by owner, so there's no listing commission. Now I will say you are probably gonna get a lot of buyers that have an agent, right? And so again, I always want to assume the best, plan for the worst. Assume the best would be, oh great, we're going to not have to pay a buyer agent fee. We already have our documents to write an offer in, and it's gonna be a great transaction, right? But let's plan for the worst, and the planning with a buyer commission in there, and we'll say the buyer commission they're gonna ask is 3%. Now, the buyers may actually ask for you to pay some of their closing cost prepaid items, escrow items, and what you can do is add a value or a number into there as well. Typically, it's gonna be anywhere from 2.5% to 3% if you wanna add that in here. Here, I'm gonna just say no and say 0 and keep going from there, okay? Now, next is where we get into the meat of it. And the meat of it is really over here and looking at those comparables. So what we've got to do is fill out this data here and pick at least 3, if not 5 addresses, and then determine what did they sell for, what was their square footage, and then that will help build us in this data to know what is that range for what we can sell this property for. So it's very interesting how you can or cannot get this data, and I'm going to show you 2 ways to do it. First, you could go to your amazing website that your favorite website, which is our website, and get a market report or a market value. And so this is an example of that market report. And if I scroll all the way to the bottom, what I can actually do is I can go and look at sold data by clicking off of the active and pending. Now, active and pending are great, right? But when we want to determine the value for what an appraiser is going to say it's worth, we want to first start with what has actually sold, because then we know an appraiser said, yes, that property was worth that much, right? So now that I did that, I can see there are 4 homes, and I can hit view all 4 homes. Now, if you don't have this website, what you can also do is you can also go to realtor.com and you can hit the just sold button and type in the city in which you want, which the property is in, your property is in. And then what you're gonna do is go ahead and hit map, and it's not really the best, easiest way to do it, but we're gonna go ahead and zoom in to wherever that property is. This property is right by Shaw Park, and it's right in here. So I can see there is one property that sold here, and what you're gonna do is go through each property and try to figure out if it's a comparable or not. What you can also do is hit this more button and go ahead and add in some of the ranges that we need to compare yours to this one. So for example, we can do lot size. So I may wanna go ahead and say, hey, we don't want any property that's sold that is over an acre of land. I do want to do square footage, and so I will do that by going to home size and look at that home, the square footage. So I'm going to go back to this tab because I can't remember what it was. So 1454 is the lowest I want to go, and then 2180 is the highest I want to go. So any square footage, so 2180, I'm going to go ahead and do 2,250, and here I want 1,500 and above. So now that we have that range, I also want to maybe determine it by age, right? This house is only 4 years old, so I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can do home age. Now, in this search, what I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to limit the amount of homes I'm gonna actually click through and look at all the pictures. So I'm gonna start off as narrow as possible, and if I don't have very many comparables that I like, I'll start broadening that out, right? I love to stick within the neighborhood if there's enough comparables. Again, I'm looking for 3 to 5. If I don't have enough comparables there, then I'm gonna zoom all the way out to even 3 miles. It always depends on how unique your property is. The more unique it is, the harder this process is actually gonna be. So on home age, I just wanna say the minimum I want is 10 years old, right? And so I'm gonna go ahead and hit view result, and it gives me one. Okay, I think I did a search wrong here. So I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of age again, no minimum, and I'm gonna hit review results. Okay, I have 9 properties. I can go ahead and look there. I may want to start by going where the closest proximity. So I'm gonna click on, because it's on Longspur, I'm gonna click on this one, which is 316 Finch Street, and I can just go through and look, okay, did this property, does it have relatively the same condition? Okay, yes it does. So once I know that, I'm gonna go ahead and type that data into my data tab, 316 Finch, and type in the square footage, which is 1845. Awesome. Now you can see some of the data is already starting to populate, but we want to get as accurate as possible. So let's go ahead and go back to realtor.com, or you can go to your market report and determine the value there. And I'm going to look at some of these other properties. So this property was actually a brand new construction. So I may not want to use that one just because it is brand new. This one says new construction as well. I could eliminate some of those. Here's one. It looks like it was used before, or someone already lived in it. Yeah, so let's go ahead and use this one. 7456 Brewery. All right, let's grab one more property here. So I'm gonna go back and I'm looking through, and I like this one. And that is on Drury as well. But that actually seems low. So let's do this one that sold for $387. Just because I want to see, let's see what this one looks like. So we can click here, look through the pictures to determine, does it look similar to ours? And we're gonna say yes. So once you have that data in, you'll see that it actually calculates a price per foot there. Now, there's two ways we kind of look at this. We look at it just basically on the square foot approach. So what it's doing is it's taking these square footages and timesing it by the square feet that we actually have. So the minimum square feet we have is 204. So 204 times 1817 gives me 370 roughly, right? And then the highest is 410 a foot, right? Again, that's what an appraiser looks at, is that price per square foot. Now a buyer is really gonna look at just the overall sell price. So this number is just showing the low and the high of the sell price. Now, if you are looking at these and you are the smaller house, your square footage is smaller than all the other comparables you're using, then you should have the highest price per square foot if everything else is the same, like condition, amenities, all of that. If you've got the biggest square footage out of all your comparables, then you may not get the highest price per square foot here at the top number, but you may get the overall highest sell price. So now this is giving you a rough range, and it's taking the average of if we're doing it based on price per square foot and if we're doing it just based on sell price. Again, the most accurate number is gonna be determined by what comparables that you are using to be able to determine the value of your property, right? So make sure it's as similar as possible. Now, once you've got that range, you can determine, okay, I've got that range. I know what a buyer is gonna look for. So they're looking for something in this area, somewhere between 360 and 395. And an appraiser is gonna say, well, this is worth anywhere from 370 to 410. Now, what do I feel like this is worth? And really, again, it goes back down to the cash in your pocket. So we determine that by looking at the seller net sheet. And in the seller net sheet is that bottom orange number right there, where it literally says, what's the money that you're going to take home? After you pay that buyer agent, if there is a buyer agent in there, after you pay your mortgage off, and then all of the other taxes, title company fees that will come about, this is what you're going to end up taking home. Is that where you want it to be? And really, is that the number that will get you to your next dream home or your next destination? So, out of those three numbers, what is that net value? What is an appraiser gonna say it's worth? And what is a buyer gonna say it's worth? Then you can really feel confident that your house is gonna sell for a number somewhere in this range, right? The next thing you want to do is what you sell for may not be what you want to list for. If you want to sell fast, you're going to end up wanting to get as close to the number as possible in that range that says this is what the value is. Yet, if you have a little bit more time, you could do a strategy where you list a little bit more to see if there is a buyer who will pay a little bit more, and an appraiser that is willing to say your home is worth more as well. And you can do that by looking then at the active and the pending data. Again, you could go back to our website, where our website tells you what pending properties there are and what active properties there are. If I look at the pending ones, it's really telling me, okay, these were priced right. They were listed at a price good enough to receive an offer from a buyer. The active is gonna be really who's our competition. And you wanna determine where you're gonna list at based off of your competition. Are you gonna be the highest price based off of your competition, or do you want to sell fast and be at the lowest price, or somewhere in the middle ground? So keep the active and pending in mind when pricing your property to list. But know that at the end of the day, are you okay with the amount of money you will take home based off of that sold data? There you go. That's how you can do it. That's how you are able to figure out the price of your own property. If you want us to create a market report for yourself, we can do that. Just go ahead and give us a contact link in the description below, as well as the spreadsheet is below, and anything else you may need, reach out to us and we'd love to help you. Thanks so much.